This is a 2006 Dodge Ram 1500 four-wheel drive. The customer complaint is loss of power steering and quite a bit of whine out of the power steering pump whenever you try to turn the wheels. So we're going to put a new power steering pump on this truck. So like most of these Dodge trucks, the hood struts are weak and they don't want to hold the hood up anymore, so we're going to put a pair of vice grips on there. Fixed. Okay, looking on top of the big 5.7 liter Hemi engine, you'll see your AC pump. Right below your AC pump is your power steering pump. Move over here so you can get a view of it. Here's the reservoir underneath this hose. There's the pulley. And this is pretty easy. There's basically just two lines, a high pressure line and a low pressure line. The low pressure line is actually just held on with a clamp. It's down here on the bottom. This line right here loops around underneath and screws into the bottom of the pump. Those can be kind of tricky sometimes to get apart. We'll see what this one looks like. And then there's, I believe, 3 bolts through the front of the pump that mount that onto the engine. So we're going to take the serpentine belt off and we'll do the rest of it from underneath. You don't have to. You can access those bolts from up here, but the vehicle's on a lift, so we're going to lift it up, and I can illustrate it better from underneath with the camera. Okay, so looking right below the alternator, this aluminum piece right here is the serpentine belt tensioner, and that is the end of a serpentine tensioner tool. But you could use a regular ratchet for this. This tool just works better because it's longer. You get more leverage. But that's your standard 3/8 square. So we'll stick her down in here. And then you're going to go clockwise with the tensioner to loosen the belt. Alright, the belt is off. I hit my camera with the tool. We'll just leave the tool right on there. We don't need it until we're done. Okay, so looking up underneath the truck, I found some money. Look at that. That right there is coolant leaking out of the wheat pole of the water pump. So we'll have to address that issue as well. But moving forward with our power steering pump video, this is our power steering pump right here. We'll get this belt out of the way. And here's the high pressure line. It actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. Usually these things rust and corrode and they don't come out, but let's not talk about it yet. I don't want to jinx myself. And then the low pressure line right there, the return line, just a clamp. So let's see if we can get these lines off here. We'll get the lines off, and then going through the face of the pulley, there's 3 bolts, and I believe they are 13 millimeter. There's one there, there's one up there, and there's one up there. And that's what holds the pump on. This line is a 16 millimeter for this line nut. The line nut is a 16 millimeter. Before I get carried away, I got carried away. I'm gonna disconnect the other one before I get carried away with this one, because I'm gonna have fluid all over the place. Okay, that right there is the clamp that's holding the low pressure line on. So let's see here. My arm's probably totally blocking the view, but alright, I got the clamp moved down. Okay. Should mention I moved the catch pan underneath it so we're not making a mess. I'm here to tell you those don't normally come out that easy. We're going to give this a minute to drain. Alright, so through these holes, you'll see the holes in the face of the pulley. That is how you access the bolts that secure it down. And they are 13 millimeter, I believe. Let me tell you in a second here. Yep, 13 millimeter. Now I'm going to leave that bottom one here and I'm going to take the other ones out. I'll take that bottom one out last. And there it is. That's the power steering pump. Our new pump actually did come with a reservoir. Some of them don't. This one that we bought did, but it didn't come with a pulley. So we're gonna pull this pulley off. Okay, the new pump is in the vise. We're gonna put a new pulley on it. It's really important when you put a pulley on. You can put these pulleys on either way, but you'll really hate yourself if you don't put it on with this little ridge here pointing up. This is the provision for removing the pulley. And you can press them on that way, but you really can't get them off that way. So we're going to set that on there. This is the cheap AutoZone pulley installer. What this tool does is there's threads inside the shaft on the pump, and this smaller portion of the threads into that. And you hold this stationary. Once you get that threaded in there, you take another wrench, you turn this right here. This is actually a bearing, and that'll push the pulley on. Theoretically, let's see how it works. Let's see here. Now just tightening this nut will act as a press and it'll push the pulley on. Okay, the tool's bottomed out, so that means the pulley's all the way on. Let's take this off. There it is. So this is the part of the video where I disappoint you guys. As you can see, the Dodge Ram is no longer on the middle bay. There's a Chevy Silverado, and I had to replace the Caitlyn Jenner right there. So the Dodge is now over here. It went outside for a while, and when I pulled it back in, I couldn't just leave that water pump pouring coolant out everywhere, so I took the front of the motor apart, replaced the water pump, and while it's apart, I'm going to put the power steering pump back in. And the reason why I say it's a disappointment is because it's a little bit easier to put the pump in now with the cooling fan gone and the fan shroud gone, so you'll see what I mean here. But honestly, if you were only doing the pump, all you would do is the opposite of the removal, which I already covered. So here we go. So you can see what I mean. With everything removed, there's a lot of room to get at this pump. We're going to stick her back in there. We'll line the pulley up with our holes. We'll get this baby back together. It's a good idea to take the wire wheel, clean your bolts up. Makes the installation go a lot smoother. So when you buy a new water pump, it comes with a little O-ring. That O-ring goes on the pressure line. And it's a good idea to lubricate it with some power steering fluid before you put it together. I got a little power steering fluid out of the return line there. Make sure our plug is out. I held that line when I tightened it so that it wasn't pressing hard against the power steering pump, because anytime a line contacts anything, over time it will wear a hole in something. Pull the rubber boot off, stick our return line on. Got our clamp in place, our power steering pump is installed. Okay, well, let's throw the serpentine belt back on. Whenever you put a cert belt back on, it's easiest to slide it over a smooth pulley than it is a ribbed pulley. So keep that in mind. I'm just using a standard 3/8 ratchet because it's what's in front of me. We'll pry that tensioner tool clockwise, slip that belt on. And then after you put the belt on, double check to make sure it's not off by one groove, because it'll split the belt right down the middle. We're good. I'm going to put the fan shroud back on, put the fan on, put the coolant jug back in place, and we'll fill this up with coolant and power steering fluid.